Hi, my name is Benedict. I had this video fleshed out, and I wasn't sure whether I was even going to make it because, quite honestly, a lot of these videos don't get views. And recently, I have been subjected to some really vile abuse, which I'll show you in a mo, or at least a small section of it. But I actually saw a video this morning where Cosmic Canopy made a video. Now, fair enough, it was to push his agenda, and fair enough, this is to push my agenda, where he was taking one of Rick Rubin's sort of mottos and supposedly testing it and saying, well, this doesn't work, this isn't right, this isn't legitimate. He then later in the video backpedals a lot. I get his point, but I think it's very interesting and very topical because it meshes in with this. I think ultimately his video as an exercise had a very flawed process, and unfortunately he didn't show the results. He has this supposed group of, supposed because I know nothing about it, so I don't want to legitimize or otherwise, this group of producers, I think that's spelled with an A on the end, who he somehow runs, and he showed them this one idea of Rick Rubin's, which is essentially you ignore the audience, you just make what you want to. And I think that's in a bigger picture of Rick Rubin. We'll discuss a little bit more as we go through. And so he said to these artists, here, just go away and rather than writing the thing that's going to sell, write the thing that you want to hear. And some of them did it, and apparently they all bombed with it. The concern that I had, the flaw in the process that I felt was there, was that A, we weren't shown who these artists were and what they normally output, and to what kind of market. And B, the really killer thing was we didn't get to hear what these people turned out as a result of this different approach of thinking of what they wanted and not thinking of the audience or the buyer, I think was more accurate in his case. So we weren't able to tell whether these people output unlistenable twaddle by any stretch of any metric, not just by I only listen to Kiss, therefore I don't like ABBA, because that's not a stretch of any case at all, at least not a relevant one. We again talk about that later. But we didn't get to hear what do they normally do, what did they turn out as a result of this, was it good work but just different. It's like if you're a Metallica fan and suddenly their next record comes out sounding like Boney M, it's understandable the audience is probably going to be confused. It doesn't necessarily make it bad work, because Boney M, generally speaking, is very, very good work for a Boney M fan, and it stands up and it's really good work. It's just, as I said, unexpected. So the fact that there was no backup, it kind of, to me, pushed a lot of what was driving me towards this, and also a lot of what was driving me to say, maybe I won't make it. The video, that is. Firstly, before we get into the content, please, I do these videos at a fair amount of time cost, energy cost, emotional cost to myself. If they are giving you value, please be sure to return that. Part of the reason I'm thinking, what's the point of making videos, is because I have increasingly been either ignored, which of course is well, why bother if you get no return from it, or I have had so much abuse over the past few years for daring to not be exactly the same as everybody else. I even had somebody say about one of my mixed walkthrough videos, he was asking for help in how to mix and how to make the vocals fit in with the music and all of that. So I showed one of my mixed walkthroughs, he sent a condescending reply like, oh well dude, that's just too long for anyone to watch. And I'm thinking, well, dude, you didn't need to say it. The fact that you made a point of saying it says that you're trying to put me on the back foot. But what really you're saying is that you'd probably sit down and watch a 1 to 2 hour movie, but you're not going to watch a 1 hour show on the thing that apparently you're really driven to do. So, dude, if you can't watch it over the course of a week, or simply be like, killer man, I get to see a mix in action, I'm going to put aside an hour and a half, or whatever that program was, then WTF are you into me about your problems? So my advice to you, sir, dude, would be you're a gamer. Be a gamer. If you just want to play Gears of Gore, play Gears of Gore. Be proud that you're a Gear of Gore guy kind of a guy. And don't pretend to be a Navy SEAL. Don't go out there and pick fights with Chuck Norris, because you're not a fighter. You're a gamer. So if you're playing music and you're a gamer, as in you just like to buy lots of keyboards and put wall padding on your wall and LED lights and what have you, and that's your end game, great, no worries. Go join a group that's your end game. This is part of what we're talking about here. You will also notice there's no door in shot. I merely have my Bandcamp page. That's not saying, oh, you need to go buy my stuff. If you want to support me, go over to Ko-fi. I will put up the scan thing, the Q code, and there'll be a link down below you can click on and go over there and give me a couple of dollars for the value that I'm giving you, if you value this. I show this simply because there's always, again, some doofus who wants to come along and go, you don't have a right to say this. I'm more pro than you are. And so my answer to that is, if you want to start a pissing contest, this is the work that I've published on Bandcamp. Bear in mind that 1, 2, 3, 4 here are actually compilations. This is my very first completed piece of work. I show It's Wonderfully Terrible. That's 1989, I think that year was. Or it might be in 88. I think it's 88. I was trained in a professional studio. So if you want to have a pissing contest, you need to show something vaguely like this. If your name is Gene Simmons and you are actually that guy from Kiss, you have a right to an opinion. I know the dude's real opinionated, but you have a right to opinion because you've done something. But if it turns out you've got nothing to show, keep that one-eyed, ass-holian opinion to yourself, lest I point out that you have nothing to show because you've started a pissing contest you're unable to complete. All right, so the point here of this video, the real discussion is following the normal advice, the usual suspects advice that you get in tips and tricks, tuts on YouBoob and what have you, actually getting you success? Is following the normal, the usual suspects advice, the things that everyone tells you you're supposed to do, getting you success? Before we can even proceed to answer that question, we actually have to define what is success. Now, for Cosmic Academy, success is getting lots of plays, making money, selling their beats, because it seems very beat-oriented, and that's fine. That's that market. So the question is, what is success? We can't define whether we're actually achieving what we want to achieve until we work out what it is that we're trying to achieve. Is it money? If it's money, then you have to follow the money, and only the money. If it's fans, you have to work out, well, who are the available fans? And simply saying, well, everyone who listens to Taylor Swift and Ed Sheeran is my potential fan. That's marketing error 101. Who's your customer base? Well, everyone from 8 to 80. Male, female, black, white, lesbian. That's marketing error 101. Because we know for a fact that while Thriller, Michael Jackson's Thriller, was probably one of the biggest selling records ever in the history of selling records, that only a very small percentage of the population own Thriller. Therefore, everyone from 8 to 80 is not actually in a viable target market for Michael Jackson's Thriller, biggest selling record ever. So you need to narrow down. If you are in a band and they're called, I don't know, the Ramones, who are you selling to? Well, you're probably selling to fans of people who like the Ramones. If you're in a band called Cannibal Corpse and you write all these cool little grindy ditties where you go about how you kill people and cut them up and put them in the freezer, is that everyone 8 to 80? I don't think so, because there are a pile of people out there who actually want to listen to Celine Dion. And they do not want to hear Cannibal Corpse. So before you go fans and that's everybody, you need to narrow down. The other one that I see a lot of too, I put under cocaine and hookers. If you're doing this, if your idea of success is cocaine and hookers, then that's okay. But you need to be honest about that. Just like if you're a gamer, you need to be honest that you're a gamer, not actually a Navy SEAL. Because if you make that mistake, then the first time you go out, you probably get punched in the face. And that leads to, and I'll pop up a comment that I got on KVR, and that was enough to finally make me go, screw you, KVR, you support this kind of shit year in, year out. And I've walked away. No more KVR. It's one of the last groups and forums that I've put any time and energy into at all. And you'll see from the meanness of this guy that he's being this mean, deliberately condescending, jabbing the knife in and twisting it around as though he were Gene Simmons. But the thing is, he's not Gene Simmons. He doesn't make any money. He doesn't have any fans. He doesn't have any cocaine and hookers. And because he hasn't worked out what success would mean for him and done appropriate work to get there, all he's got left is to be an absolute fucktard. Read that thing, don't read it. It's simply an inevitable result of not understanding what you're trying to achieve, and also most likely following the wrong advice to achieve the wrong outcome for him. It may also be there's a gamer, but I know so little I didn't waste any time doing research on it. He'd already proven that there was no pissing contest there because he thought he'd already won. So the other question is, do the people who sell these ideas that we're encouraged to follow have the sort of success that you want? This is very, very related to the last question that I asked. So if we're looking at insert name of famous YouTuber here, then normally they're influencer types, the ones who are very fashionable and make videos that don't look like mine. Do they have the sort of success that you want? Now, if the answer is yes, then you need to do what they do, only outdo them. In which case, you shouldn't be watching me. You should be watching one of those guys who's all about rah-rah and what have you. How to trace the latest trend, how to... all this kind of stuff that does not work for me. I respect that those guys can have success. That's fine. I respect anyone who's achieved something. I don't respect their message, because I don't think that their message is anything other than pay me your money, make me popular, because it's not about music as I value it. Because my idea of success, yes, does include some money, does include some fans, but the reality is it's actually about something different. For me, my idea of success is actually having people go, hey, Benedict, I just listened to your latest record, Elegantly Drifting Apart, and I think it's really wonderful and it touched me, and as a result I gave you my $7 for it. The real fan engagement, the fan engagement that I get with Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, or Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run, or Candlemass's Epic as Doomicus. But I interestingly do not get from a lot of modern stuff. I bought 2 records because I was given one of the kids gave me a $20 Bandcamp voucher. And so that stretched to buy me 2 records. One of them was Yellow Man. Actually, no, I'm not going to put up the images here because it's going to be unfair to an indie. Even though I think they've earned it, I think it's going to be unfair to them, and I don't want to put the boot into indies. But Yellow Man is one of the pioneers of dancehall, early rapper type person, and that's a charming record. It has its limits, but I know that going in. But it's a charming record. It does something unique. It does something special. So I won't listen to it all the time. It's not going to knock Eye in the Sky off my greatest record ever, but it's a good thing to have. The other one I bought was a far more modern, because the Yellow Man record's from '83, far more modern, released last year, I think it was, Metal Act. From dipping in, it seemed like it was going to be pretty cool, but unfortunately I've listened to it 3 or 4 times, and every time I end up not finishing the record because it's one-dimensional. There's no feel in it. They've hit certain targets and then just photocopied them over and over, even within the same song. So it's just like, okay, yeah, there are some cool things that you've got that make you stand out a little bit of a gothic delivery or what have you, but after that, it's formula. You're just turning a handle, which means that their target is money, fans, hookers. It's not about providing anything. Now, fair enough, they seem to be selling records. They seem to be selling more records than me. But my aim is to actually make something that matters. I think that what they've made doesn't matter other than the short term of having people go, wow, amazing record, guys. But it's not an amazing record. It's not going to be remembered. It's not going to be like Priest Screaming for Vengeance, which is an awesome record, or even Priest's Ram It Down, which is in certain effect a lame record, but still stands up and is very enjoyable to listen to when in the right mindset. 85 or something or other that came out. So the thing is, you've got to have a very clear idea of what you're doing. I agree with Rick Rubin in the bigger context of looking at the bigger thing that he's saying, not just extracting 4 words, saying that's everything that he said, is that have a clear idea. Is your message someone else's idea of success? In other words, are you trying to clone somebody else? In which case you can only fail. Doesn't matter how hard I try to be Bruce Springsteen, I'm never going to be Bruce Springsteen, regardless of the fact that I can't sing, that I can't write, that I can't play a Telecaster and don't look that good in jeans. The thing is, I can only be Benedict, so I have to be what I am. So are you trying to push somebody else's idea of success, somebody else's message? Because if so, how can people relate to you and your product? Your music, once it's done, is a product. I agree with Mr. Cosmic Academy on that. Once you have released your record, once you've put it out, put it up on my Bandcamp here, it's now a product in terms of in the market. Here is a product. Are people going to choose to buy Measured Spaces, Master the Skies? They probably aren't going to be interested in Master the Skies because they're going to think it's a yucky cover. They may find this cover too confusing. They may like this cover. They may like this cover because it's blurry. It's a product. Fair enough. I have no argument with that whatsoever. The thing is, how are people going to relate to you and your product? Most people don't think this through. We'll talk about that a little bit more later. So, who are the people whose ideas, whose formulas you're following? Do they have the kind of success that you want? If I were to pick a formula of an artist I might want to have a success like, then it used to be Gary Newman, but I'm as likely to pick Jackson Browne. And if you listen to my music and Jackson Browne's music, you go, but how could you want to be like him at all? You're nothing like him. You don't write sensitive, thoughtful songs, lyrical things, and you don't play piano, and there's no guitar strumming, and all these technical things, but they're literal. We spend far too much time following formulas, and then there are the people who go, there's no formula, man. There's always a formula. Human beings, we have a formula. We have a head on top. We have a left hand and we have a right hand. We have a left leg and a right leg, and we have a lump of squishy guts in the middle that hold it all together. All humans follow a formula. And if you try to say, but you're denying reality. The reality is we all have a head, 2 arms and 2 legs. Those that are born with only 1 arm and 3 legs, well, yeah, but they're simply part of the formula. Sometimes nature says, let's try doing something different. And it doesn't work out quite the same. I'm not being judgy. It's simply a reality that nature says 2 arms, 2 legs, and a head on top is probably the more successful formula, because the other formulas, the times it tries something just a little too radical, well, it doesn't work out very well. Doesn't mean those people can't go and have wonderful lives, blah, blah, blah. So no need to get into any kind of woke shit with me. It's not about that. It's about the thinking. If you don't want to do the thinking, go back to being a gamer. So there is a formula. The formula is true. The problem is these days, people are taking everything to be literal. The formula is a soft one. And Rubin's approach is a soft approach. He doesn't stand there pointing to the guitarist saying, no, don't play the E string, play the D string. He leaves that to the guitarist. He might well be saying to the guitarist, I think we need a little bit more here. And I know some guitarists get, but you need to tell me what string to play and what, and that's because they're being literal. But Rubin doesn't work that way. He relies on the artist to bring their thing, and he presents the scene and the story that he believes is going to get it to where it needs to be, because he is fully aware that there is an audience and that there are fans and hookers. So the thing is, there is a formula, but it's a much softer formula than most people take it to be because they think it's literal. And a lot of the problem with a lot of these YouTubers is that they prey on those who want it to be literal, the gamers who want it to be easy, basically who want to be lazy, who don't want to see beyond the obvious, those who only want to come at things head on. I always say it's art, you've got to come at it sideways. And I know that doesn't seem to make sense, but it doesn't make sense because you're trying to answer that head on. We live in a problem era where everybody is obsessed with the literal. People want videos where in 2 seconds or less you say, grab this VST, grab this red knob on that VST, set it to 48.754, and you are going to win Grammys. How fucked up is that? Anybody should realise that in an art form, that's not how it works. You can look at the bigger picture. Just watching Kingdom of Heaven, the movie that Ridley Scott, I think it is. It's a good movie, but generally doesn't get particularly good feedback. And there's the bit where the young fellow starts to join the knights, what have you, and he has some sword fighting training. But straight away, the people he's with, who are genuine, experienced campaigners, they've been out there fighting for real, the Saracen. And so they say, well, no, you start with the high guarders, and you start by holding your sword up here, not out in front of you. And they explain why. Is it right or is it wrong? I don't care. Within the context of the movie, it is right. They simply say, hey, you want to do it this way, but it's the why that matters. It's not just, oh, well, you stand this way because it looks cool, or because that's how so-and-so does it. That's pointless. It's this literal approach that's doing a huge amount of damage to have people follow wrong advice based on a wrong idea of success, either because they're chasing somebody else's idea of success, or more importantly, they don't actually work out what their success is. So the question comes back to what I just touched on before. What is it you really sell? Do you know what you sell? Obviously, with the Cosmic Academy video, there is that disconnect, and we never get to see the outcome of what these producers did when told, just make what you want, bugger the audience, based on this rather extracted and probably misappropriated Rick Rubin-ism. We didn't get to see, so it broke, to me, the whole idea of such a scientific approach to things. It could have been interesting. It would have been interesting. If you don't know what it is that you sell, then it's really hard to sell it. And I admit it is difficult, very, very difficult. The question then becomes, well, how do you find out what you sell? And this is a process that I see everybody fly straight past. Just about everybody I see, they're looking for, how do I become Taylor Swift? How do I become Dua Lipa? How do I become Ed Sheeran? How do I become Kanye or some trapper rapper I've never heard of? And if I go listen to it, I just sort of go, yeah. And that's fine. You know, people like that kind of stuff. That is okay. But the problem is, if your idea of who you are, what you sell, is somebody else, as we've established really early on, you're chasing somebody else's vision. It's fair enough to say, oh, I see Kiss and they've got lots of money, lots of fans, lots of hookers. I want to achieve those things. Fine. Then you've got to work out how to get there. Copying Kiss is really actually a very poor plan. It seems like it might be a good plan, but A, are you Gene Simmons? Are you Paul Stanley? Are you Peter Criss? Are you Ace Frehley? Or whoever's in Kiss this week. You've got to get my real point here, because literally who it is irrelevant. Kiss is bigger than the players, but it does largely require Paul and Gene, at least, to come off as Kiss. The thing is, they have a thing. It's a Kiss thing. It's the Kiss formula. If you get too close to the Kiss formula, guess what? People go, oh, it reminds me of Kiss, but it's not Kiss. And they leave. You've got to create your own identity. You've got to create your own statement. Let's take Wasp, W-A-S-P, Wasp. Blackie Lawless was a big fan of the New York Dolls, no doubt was a fan of Kiss, and wanted to have his own go at doing that, including trying to rope in some of the Dolls, and end up with Wasp. Now, Wasp ended up with its own identity. It didn't end up with an identity as strong or palatable to the masses as Motley Crue, who were also doll aficionados. You can see that in a much, much earlier video where I talk about that. But Wasp ended up creating something which was Wasp. We can tell Wasp from Halloween, from Kiss, from Crue, from Cinderella. All these acts managed to develop something that was just enough, at least, to differentiate. But the problem with that metal record that I bought is that it reminds me of this and that, and then it's got nothing to differentiate it. It was enough when just dipping in fragments to go, oh, this sounds like it's cool, because in any slice, it seems cool. But in the big picture, it's broken. And artist development is about developing a big picture of who you are. You see at the beginning of this video, it says Benedict, the thinking guy. I make it very clear I'm about the thinking process, but then some people choose to just bypass that and abuse me. But really what's happening is that they're trying to justify why they don't want to do the real work. Their business, why they need to tell me, I don't know. I guess the thing is they feel guilty for not doing the real work, and that's their bloody business. But they don't need to put me down, because by doing that, all they're doing is establishing they're not going to do the real work, and they're not prepared to even do the real work of being a gamer. If you're a real gamer, then you simply accept, oh, I'm a gamer, and you do more gamey shit. You don't waste your time on trying to pretend that you're fighting Chuck Norris. You're not. You're just beep, 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 and you can have fun with that, and you can be open with that. And it's like when I used to surf, I knew I was nobody's surfer. I was bad at it. My board actually was waterlogged. But I went out there, I put out to sea, and I paddled around, and I enjoyed it. It was a good experience for me. I miss that. Can't do it anymore, too old and too broken. So the thing is, you need to develop yourself as an artist. And that is not simply I am, therefore I am. Those acts that I've spoken about, Kiss, Wasp, Cinderella, Motley Crue, even Kanye, Ed Sheepman. I think Ed Sheepman, the man himself, Ed Sheeran, and Ed Sheepman are probably quite different. I have a sneaky suspicion that if Ed were to do exactly what he wanted, we'd probably end up with a very different result. So I admire that he can sell to the market, which is what the conclusion that Cosmic Academy was saying is you've got to sell to the market, this Rubin shit, that'll stop you from selling to the market. But it's like you've extracted a fraction of something that Rick said. Rick's proven that he can sell to the market. He can change the market. That's the real power. And that's his intent, in saying that if you make a strong statement, let's pick Metallica. Doesn't matter whether you're a fan or not, just go out and do a little bit of reading on these two choices from Metallica. Metallica's One is a tremendous statement of a record. It is brutal, it is intense, it is a band saying, this is what we are saying, this is what we are doing. It is a powerful record. Then there's St. Anger, which is actually a Rubin record, and it doesn't say much at all. It tries to turn the wheel to go with the formula, but it's not super popular with the fan. There are some people who like it, and they've obviously understood it, but every time I turn it on, I just sort of go, oh, this is not a band making a statement. This is a band trying to follow the rules. Sad. So we need to develop as an artist. It is not easy to do this in sort of an hour. You commonly need a third party. If we look in all the histories of successful rock stars, the Sex Pistols, Adam Ant was really struggling. He wasn't getting anywhere. Same with Kiss. They weren't getting anywhere. It was only after third-party advice that said, hey chaps, get yourself in utility drag, to borrow from a John Fox lyric, and they started to develop an artist identity. The personal identities of the guys in Kiss and the artist identities of Kiss were probably very, very different. When you see Paul speak now in interviews and stuff, even if he's got his makeup on, he's definitely not a knight in Satan's service. He's not there to chew babies' heads or anything like that. He seems like a lovely guy who's very dedicated to music in the deepest sense. He expresses it through the Kiss thing, and good on him, why wouldn't you? Because he is one of the greats. So we need to have the ability to see in a mirror, and commonly the best way to see in a mirror is to have somebody else who can reflect that back to you. Now, unlike my best dude buddies who reflect their anger back at me, they're not going anywhere because I can't help them anymore. They are very clearly saying, I don't want your help, I don't want to change. Okay, dude, you don't need to change. But if you didn't feel the need to change, why would you be throwing hand grenades at me? Why would you be trying to belittle me so that you can feel okay exactly where you are? If you feel okay exactly where you are, you don't need to comment on what I've said, done at all. If it's too long for you to watch, you just simply don't watch it. You don't need to write and tell me that it's too long because it's my failing that you don't want to invest the time. So the thing is, these people are looking for change, but they're then fighting themselves. I had another one, and it was on KVR just before the last bit, and it was like, I had a guy reach out to me. He reached out to me. And it wasn't even his song. It was a collab, and he was the minor partner in the collab, as in it wasn't really his song. And he reached out privately because he didn't want to be seen to do it publicly. Exactly what his thinking on that was, but I straight away thought red flag. That's red flag number one. But he asked for my advice and my help, and he was clearly angling for wanting to send me the multitracks, the stems of his song so that I could remix it. But it wasn't his song. So I was not going to touch it because it wasn't his song. I needed the real owner of the song to ask me. I also was concerned that he wanted to ask it in private. Why did he want to ask it in private? In my opinion, he wanted to ask it in private because he didn't want to be publicly seen as being less than most excellentest. When Sting goes into the studio, Sting can do absolutely everything to do with making a record. Sting can do anything he wants. This is a smart guy. Doesn't matter whether you like him or not, he's a smart guy. He can do whatever he wants because he's capable, he's intelligent, and he can turn himself to whatever he wants. But when Sting goes into the studio, guess what? He takes drummers. He takes a bass player. She doesn't have any hair, but he takes a bass player, and he's a bass player. He takes a bass player. He takes a whole pile of other people who can do what he can do. But he knows that we need to work as part of a team. So in terms of finding your artist identity, you need to do it as part of a team. And if you deny being part of a team, which is what this guy was doing, he was wanting to deny his limits, then we're selling a false idea about ourselves. Not a cool false idea like Gene Simmons in makeup with his tongue hanging out. We're selling a poor false idea, a damaging false idea. And as the conversation went backwards and forwards, and I must admit, and I ultimately admitted to him that I was deliberately stepping sideways the whole way through. I wasn't saying no, I was just stepping sideways looking for, well, what's the real end game here? What's the real conclusion here? Is this guy going to get over his whatever the hell's going on? Or is this going to be a nightmare? And ultimately it was a nightmare. And the thing was, it became him belittling me one post after another, and when I pushed back a little on the belittling, he first apologized, but it was a backhanded apology that was like, oh, well, sorry, you were upset. Well, yeah, dude, I was upset because you were bloody rude to me. You came to me as the expert and then tried to suggest that I was less of an expert than you, and then you kept doing this through the conversation. So you can't find who you are if you don't look in a mirror. And the best mirror to look in is not actually one made of glass or the screen, as I can see myself talking here. Hello. But it's actually another person, a more experienced person. If you have access to Rick Rubin and you have the in your pants to actually listen to what he says, more up here, really. But it's courage. You've got to have courage. Most people don't have courage. This guy I'm talking about, who moved into private so nobody could see, he lacked courage. And when faced with that in the end, his solution to prove how courageous he was to abuse me even more and tell me that his mix was better than anything I would ever do. It's like, dude, you approached me as the expert in the first place. I never mixed your track. I did point out that your track had some difficulties because you acknowledged you had some difficulties and you wanted them improved. Dude! So you listen to somebody else. If you have access to Rick Rubin, if you can hire Rick Rubin as your producer to help you develop as an artist, do so. If you can't access Rick Rubin, then find who you can access. If you have the courage and are prepared to back that, then, hey, guess what? You're watching a video of somebody who does this stuff, who's talking about it. So you've got to take your time. It won't happen in an hour. You've got to work out who you are, but you've got to have courage. Marketing is what this is. True marketing, not putting adverts out. That's advertising. Marketing is saying, what is my market? Who's going to buy my record? Not everybody from 8 to 80, that's for sure. Not most of the people who bought Thriller. If you're Celine Dion, it's not going to be Cannibal Corpse fans. If you're Cannibal Corpse, it's not going to be Celine Dion fans. Even if you are trying to do pop or trap or whatever, your market is actually not Kanye or whoever's, I don't know the names. It's not that. You have to work out who is a viable, available market for what I do, as in who is going to reward me for this. And that's not plays, because we've established in other videos that plays don't give you squat. You can't buy mouldy carrots with plays. Take them down to your supermarket and say, sir, I got 70 trillion plays on my tune on Spotify. I'd like that mouldy carrot, please. And you're gonna get two very short and rather direct words. No carrot for you. Unless he's giving it to you as charity, but he's not swapped it for your plays. Marketing is about developing this idea. It takes time and very careful thought and a lot of soul searching and, as I keep saying, courage. So, going back to the beginning, yes, Cosmic Academy and picking out a fragment of something that Rick Rubin said, very modern thinking, very modern condescending approach. It's a flawed process compounded by the fact that you never actually showed the results. You said the results were fascinating, but we had no context. Did these people fail with being themselves because they were trying to sell Boney M records to a Metallica market? Did they fail simply because they're not artists of any merit in the first place? They are cookie-cutter formula guys, grinders. And that's okay. The market needs grinders. Session musicians are often not capable of making their own cool records. They're grinders, but the great ones often transition, but they're grinders. They sit there all day going chugga, 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 chugga. Read about some of the really early session players, the famous ones because they're easy to read about, the Wrecking Crew. Some of them became famous, many of them did not. The ones that became famous, Glenn Campbell, went out, became, well, Glenn Campbell, because he had extra something. Carol Kay, I don't know why there wasn't a Carol Kay thing, but it's possible Carol Kay was just an excellent grinder. Nothing against her. I hold her in very, very high regard. She was a wonderful musician, a real musician's musician, in that she added a special something to the records. But you need to work out who you are. If these people in Cosmic Academy's experiment failed to engage an audience, failed to sell a single one of their tunes that were made based on this is what I want to make, it could be, as I said, a mismatch, simply that they're normally selling to Metallica fans and now they've written a Boney M record. Of course their fans are going to be confused. If you say to your Metallica fans, here's the new Metallica record and it's By the Rivers of Babylon, we've got a problem. Dave Grohl and Foo Fighters can get away with it because he's in a position where he's able to change. But if you are a grinder and you turn up for a pop session and start playing death metal, you're not a good grinder. The other question that I raised there was it simply unmitigated garbage because these grinders are unable to actually produce art? They can colour by numbers, but are they unable to produce art? We won't know because it wasn't shown, nor do I want to get into that. I'm not there to try to expose anybody, including Mr. Cosmic Academy. Simply taking that this is the normal, the advice that you get in just about every video. And it doesn't work for lots of people because they don't get success. Largely because they've got the wrong idea of what success is for them. They haven't worked out who they are and therefore what fans they should be targeting. My music, I said, I to some extent take a big leaf out of the Jackson Browne idea. But if I were to pitch my music to Jackson Browne fans, they're just going to go, I don't get it. It makes more sense to put it somewhere near people who have enjoyed Tangerine Dream, Vangelis, Tomita. I tend to shy away from people who go Jare, 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 or even Kraftwerk, 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 simply because they're often quite narrow. They expect that literal formula. I don't do it. There are times where you can hear those things in what I do, but I'm after those who are more open-minded. I need a more open-minded fan to sort of say, I get what you're doing. I know this. Exactly as to where they are, I don't know. But that's the big dilemma of social media, is that it generally gives us advice which is only one-eyed and only taking into account one situation. But the stronger we are as an artist with a strong vision, think Kiss, strong vision. Bee Gees, strong vision. Michael Jackson, strong vision. If you have a strong vision, then you will find that people start to gravitate towards you. My sales have gone up over the years, and the more I've settled into my vision, the more my sales have, well, coalesced, I think, rather than saying because they don't blam, but it's a tiny slice of the market. So take the time, work with somebody. If you're not working with somebody, if you're not having those conversations and taking the challenges that are given, remember this is soul searching. You've got to dig deep and you've got to have courage. If you're not doing that, then accept that and go back to being a gamer. That is fine, but just acknowledge that you're a gamer. The moment you find yourself wanting to throw hand grenades at people like myself, then you've got to question, why are you doing this? What is it about you that is so lacking? What are you missing in yourself? Now, if you had a rational, kind conversation, chances are I would highlight that for you. But if you throw hand grenades at me, all I'm going to highlight is that you're an incompetent doofus who deserves every failure they get because you're bringing it on yourself. So, if you are following all the normal formulas of what you're supposed to do to get success, and it's not bringing you any success that you want, get a clear idea. What is it you're really looking for? Is the advice that you're following even relevant to you, let alone actually technically accurate? Because so much of the mixing advice and what have you is just whack jam, totally whack jam. And I do feel so sorry that it's out there, and unfortunately attempts to counter that are met with abuse, which again tells me that there's something wrong. In true science, if somebody says, yeah, but I don't think that's how gravity works, maybe not the best example, but a true scientist is going to say, well, okay, fair enough. What's your model? What's your idea? What's your theory? And then what's your proof of it? So the reason that Bandcamp's in the background here is my proof of my work that I've done. There's a lot of client work as well, but not on my Bandcamp because it's on their Bandcamps, their YouTubes. If you want to see that, there will be a link down below to my website. Go have a look at that, go onto the mixing page, and you will find client work, Jake Cropley, the like. That's client work. If you have questions about the program, please be kind and thoughtful and elegant in the way you speak. Ask them down below. If, again, you want to reward me for the fact that I've added value to your life, then yeah, likes and this, that, and the other, yeah, they're nice, but I can't spend them. Go over to coffee, give me some coins, please. Or if I've piqued your interest and made you think, you know what, this guy really has something that I want to take advantage of, then engage me in your process. It's simple as that. Do like Sting does, hire a bass player. Because it's not about saying I'm no good as a bass player when you have a bass player. It's merely a case of saying, what does the song need? What do I need to get there? And if Sting can get there better with a girl with no hair playing bass that he could play himself, then Sting does that. And that's why Sting is successful. You should be doing the same kind of thinking. And again, if you go, oh, but I can't afford somebody, then if you're not prepared to trade anything for this. A lot of the people who say that are more than happy to trade 150, 200 bucks on a VST they have no idea how to use. They're more than happy to trade 500 bucks on a course that is probably teaching them poor things, and ultimately they get nothing from because they haven't understood what it's about. They will spend $5,000 on a synthesizer. They will spend, I don't know what sorts of money on wall padding and lighting for their studio to feel more producery. But they won't spend $150 on a mix. They won't spend even $30 on getting advice from a producer about their song. Which, if you're that person, that's okay, but you've got to stop pretending. Sting pays all these people who come into the studio with him, and no doubt that's not $15. They're not Five Freddy's, these people he brings in. They are good people. So they will all probably be paid a large amount of money. Let's pick a number out of the air and say, let's say they get paid $1,000 a day for showing up. Just for showing up. And I don't know about Sting, but I know that it's not uncommon in those sorts of situations that you get to the end of the recording session and you might hand somebody $5,000. You go out and take your band on tour, you get to the end of the tour, they've all got to the end of the tour, they've all done a great job, especially if you've got people like that girl with no hair or Lee Sklar or whatever, and they get handed a bonus. Not a $50 bonus, but a significant bonus. This is how it works, because you reward your people, otherwise they don't reward you. If you're not prepared to invest where it matters, which is people, then you have to question, what is success to you? What are you really trying to achieve? What's your message? If your message is like that guy who wanted to hide asking for help, your message is broken. And your message is probably quite contrary to what you want. I'm very, very open, brutally open, which some people don't like, and that's fine. I have no problem with that. Until, of course, they decide that they want to break me in return. That is not okay, because it's a sign, A, of a complete lack of respect, and slandering me to try to cover their own incontinence is not cool. But it means that they're getting nowhere. My greatest sadness out of those things is, well, A, I've been slandered, and it gives other people the impression that I am this loser thing that the loser told them that I was. You know, shit sticks. And they know this, which is why they do it. And also why they resist having it come back. They'll dish it out, but they can't take it back because they don't want that shit sticking to them. It's like, well, dude, if you can't handle having this shit stuck to you, then don't dish it out. The fact that we've got a whole culture that says that people can dish it out so long as they can just say, oh, just saying, or it's just my opinion, but then they can't take it back. You know, they can't have it delivered back to them. It's like, there's something wrong with that picture. So be really, really careful. Have a clear idea. If you are following the popular formula advice and it's not working out for you, reassess. Doesn't mean that I'm the right guy for you, but if you've got this far, I might be. Most importantly, get out there, do amazing work. Oh, sorry, I distracted myself. What I was going to say, my greatest disappointment and worry and concern, the greatest disappointment when I meet these whackers who want to assault me is the damage they're doing to themselves. I've always seen my role as being helping people to get things done. If you look through what I've done, where I've worked with clients, I've often gotten them results where they weren't getting results before, or gotten them a kind of result they didn't believe they could get. That's what I do. That's what I'm good at. Obviously, they have to work with me. They have to have the courage when it comes to it. But when people apply even a small amount of courage, they get better results than they had before. That's what my job is. And I'm super sad when somebody comes and insults me and does this, because I've not been able to do my job. I've spoken to them or around them in the first place because I'm trying to give the advice that would help somebody do a better job, to deliver something that's more them, more unique, more likely to attract a genuine fan. And I'm aware that that can vary across, pop fans through to weird, wacky, Yoko Ono kind of stuff. I'm not judgy about the stuff that I work with. I try and think, well, okay, what's the market for this? Where's the market for this? And if they are doing trap type stuff, then I understand it's going to want to fit most of that formula, but it just has to have something compelling enough to drag people away from either Kanye or, more importantly, to appeal to those who are looking for something strong with a strong statement. And when people don't have the courage, then I'm sad. And even more saddened that when they close themselves off by taking this aggression route against the person who would have helped them if they hadn't been such an arse as to close their doors, and more so to close their doors in my face to try and harm me, to try to make themselves feel good. Because it's the wrong advice, it's the wrong path, it won't get them any more success. They might feel a little bit champion in a few seconds, but tomorrow, next week, they haven't got a hit record. They haven't got another fan. Matter of fact, they've burnt somebody, directly me, and probably anyone else who's a reasonable person around is going to go, that's a whack jam. That's a really whack jam. I'm not going to spend any time or energy with that person. So they could blow possible collabs. They can blow possible people who might go and listen to their record. The only reason I listen to those people's records is simply so that I can go back to them and say, you want to start a pissing contest, dude, you need to have some piss, because what I've got at the moment that I'm seeing from you is nothing, or is so broken that you don't have a pot to piss in. So you need to reassess your tood, dude. It's an attempt to help them at that point. Obviously, they're not going to take it, but I still see it as my job to try to provide the parental turnaround to say, straighten up and fly right, sonny. Okay, get out there, have fun. If there is something that I've touched on, please support me. Ko-fi, some dollars there, helps tremendously because, as I say, that can be translated to carrots or more Yellow Man records. Or hire me. That's where it really rubber meets the road. Get out there, have a good day.